Hey, this is Jeff Kay, public address announcer for the NFL's Dallas Cowboys and the NHL's Dallas Stars. You are watching and listening to PAA Game Day.
Please welcome the host of PAA Game Day and a public address announcer for Syracuse University and Colgate University, as well as the New York State Public High School Athletic Association for numerous championships, Tom Winiecki.
So welcome, everybody, to another episode of PAA Game Day, the podcast that takes you behind the mic and into the booth with some of the best voices in sports. I'm your host, Tom Winiecki, and today we have someone announcing two major professional sports in one of the country's biggest markets. He's the voice that you hear booming through AT&T Stadium and the American Airlines Center, the man behind the mic for both the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Stars, better known as Jeff Kay, Jeff Kovarsky. Jeff, thanks for joining us today, man.
I appreciate it, Tom. Glad to be here. Really enjoy what you guys are doing here.
Great, thank you. So, Jeff, how did all of this start for you? You don't just wake up one day and land the PA gigs for two of the biggest franchises in one of the country's biggest markets. How did all this start?
Yeah, well, it's a long story that I'll try to not make too long, but my passion for sports, and especially hockey, started when I was growing up. You know, I lived on the East Coast. I grew up in New Jersey, and my dad used to take me to Rangers games at Madison Square Garden. Of course, no better venue in the world to see a sporting event than the Garden. So we're talking mid to late 70s, and that was some of the greatest times for the New York Rangers. So I caught the hockey bug early. When I moved to Dallas in '82, I went without professional hockey for about a decade because the Stars didn't move to Dallas until '93 from Minnesota. And by the time the Stars had moved to Dallas in 1993, I had already been on the radio for a couple of years. Currently, I'm in my 38th year on the radio in Dallas.
Oh, wow.
But at the time, the Stars didn't have many friends in the media who understood hockey, and originally being from the East Coast. I was very passionate about the team. I was a season ticket holder from day one. So I had developed a relationship with the Stars very early on.
Okay.
And when the Stars moved from Reunion Arena into their new building, the American Airlines Center, in 2001, so I was brought in to consult for the music with the Stars in 2005, and that eventually led to me becoming the music director for the Dallas Stars. And then I evolved into their in-game host position in 2009. And then when Bill Ollerman, our longtime public address announcer, retired after 18 seasons, because I was a familiar voice in the arena to the fans, I slid into the public address announcer's position, and I've been the PA announcer for the Stars since 2012. But this year is my 20th year. I started in 2005, 20 years with the Stars. So that's still can't believe it.
Wow, that is a good long stretch. That's fantastic. Now, Jeff, one of the cool things that I've noticed that you do, especially with the Stars, is how you work to bring the fans into the experience, how you post pregame videos or behind-the-scenes photos. Now, I have to ask you, do you have to run that by the club, or do they just trust you to just let you go with it?
Well, I think there's a understanding of, you know, what is and what is not permitted with a professional hockey team. Certainly aren't providing any type of insider information that, you know, would be priority or, you know, anything that would get anybody in trouble. What I want to do, or what I'd like to do, and this kind of started when I was between the benches in the penalty box, is I like to bring the fans into my perspective. You know, there's only 32 of these jobs in the National Hockey League.
Right.
And I feel like fans, you know, they want to be a part of the action. And I had a unique perspective being so close to the action that I would record during warm-ups. And, you know, players like Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin would shoot pucks at the window, the glass right in front of me. And that was always fun for the fans to see that. I also think fans want to know the nuts and bolts of what it is that we do as public address
Okay.
announcers. And so I'll take pictures and highlight my goal sheets and show some of the preparation involved in the presentation.
All right.
And now that I'm no longer on the ice, I've moved up into the lower bowl. I record myself doing the goal calls and the player
Yeah.
intros, and that seems to be very popular. But listen, nobody's going to promote public address announcers more than public address
Very
announcers.
true.
And what I've noticed is it's really caught on in the National Hockey League. You've got guys like Joe Tollison in New York and Phil Hewlett in
Yeah.
Anaheim. You've also got guys like Al Murdoch in Vancouver, Adam Hamway in New Jersey. Also, I can't forget about Andrew Imber in Florida.
Yep.
All of
Yep.
these guys are starting to put up video of what it is that they do on game day.
Yeah.
So they're all great follows on social media.
Yeah. It sounds like the perfect mix of professionalism and personality. Now, Jeff,
Exactly right.
you talked about that you used to sit at ice level, and that had to be wild. I'm sure you heard some pretty salty things when you were down there. But now you mentioned you're up at a different spot. And you started to talk about it a little bit, but how did that change of location change your job as the public address announcer?
Yeah, well, it goes back to 2020. You know, the COVID experience jettisoned the public address announcers who were at center ice away. You know, half the guys weren't at center ice to begin with. So to try to make the argument that we were really necessary at center ice wasn't a strong argument. So when the decision was made after COVID to not put all of the existing PA guys at center ice back, we all had to find a new home in the arena. For some guys, that meant the press box. For other guys, that meant trying to find a place in the bowl that was closer to the action. And since I was a fan, I would say I'm a fan who got lucky. You know, I was a season ticket holder who found a way to get paid to go to games, and the Stars bought it, which is the crazy part. I wanted to be as close to the action as possible. So the Stars have really taken great care of me. They've set me up with a really nice PA perch. I'm in the lower bowl. I'm behind the last row in the lower section. I'm out where fans can come by and say hi and high five, and they can see, you know, my setup and, you know, take pictures. And I can wear jerseys on specific nights, and I can cheer when we score and all those fun things. But it has changed. You know, being at center ice, you're right there when penalties are called. The referees are discussing what's going on. You can kind of
Yeah.
overhear what they're
Yeah.
saying. I can relay that information to my director of game presentation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, I can no longer do that. So it's kind of a more reactionary position.
Okay.
However, I have monitors at my new location, which I wouldn't have at center ice. I've got USB ports, which I wouldn't have at center ice. I've got a space heater, which is kind of cheating, but I wouldn't have that at center ice. So like I said, the Stars have done a great job of taking really good care of me where I'm located now. And it would really be hard for me to go back because I have so many amenities, but I probably would go back in a heartbeat.
I can certainly understand that myself. I've done a lot of Division I college ice hockey, and to be right there at ice level is just different. It's just
Oh,
special
yeah.
and it's different.
Yeah, you get to hear guys, you know, after a fight. I remember one time, I think it was in, maybe like 2017, 2019, Antoine Roussel and Chris Thorborn of St. Louis, might have been 2018. They had a real big fight and they were in the box. And instead of cursing each other out, Antoine Roussel and Chris Thorburn were comparing contract sizes to each other. And I thought, that's pretty funny, you know. Antoine Roussel says, "Oh yeah, I make this much," and Thorburn says, "Yeah, well, I make this much." You know, they were throwing it out there on the table trying to see who was making more money. I thought that was pretty
geez.
funny.
Oh man. Now preparation. That's everything in what we do. And I've heard where you said the more I can practice and rehearse, the better I'll be. Now those
Right.
names in the NHL have to be brutal sometimes. Where do you go to get those pronunciations?
Well, you know, the PA Brotherhood. You might have heard
Yeah.
Andrew Imber telling you
Yep,
about the
yep.
PA Brotherhood. It's us NHL public address announcers. We got together and thought the best place for us to get pronunciations on all our players would be us. And so Ryan Mill from Pittsburgh, he created a website called announcerhelp.com. And it's not a private website. Anybody can go to it. But basically, you go to it, you pick the team you want to hear, and the names are pronounced by the public address announcer in that market.
Okay.
So you know they're right. So
Mhm.
if I go to Florida, I get Andrew
Yep.
pronouncing the teams, right? If you come to Dallas's page, you get me pronouncing the teams. So we do that as kind of a backup or a support for each other.
Okay.
And if you want to check it out, go to announcerhelp.com.
All right. All right. Now, yeah, absolutely. I've had someone tell me years ago, and I repeat it back to other people, anybody that asks. Rule number one, get the names right. Rule number two, never break rule number one.
We've got some guys in Dallas that are pretty difficult. We've got a kid that's come up this year. His name is Justin Ritzkowian, but it's spelled Hryczkowian. Like if you look at it, you would want to say Haircowian, but he pronounces it Ritzkowian. Actually, easier to say than it is to read.
I would
And
imagine.
we've also got,
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah, we've also got another guy named Kyle Capobianco. Sounds like a good Italian name. I keep waiting for him to score so my music director can play Copacabana.
Oh, those are the fun names to say, though. Those are the ones you love to say.
Exactly right. So we have some challenges in Dallas, but once again, go to announcerhelp.com.
There you go. So, folks, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we return, Jeff will tell us about a favorite player, a signature call he has, and a bit of a different request, a bit out of the ordinary that the NHL had of him. You're not going to want to miss this.
Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. 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 Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Roll sound. Sound production, take two.
www.publicaddressannouncer.org.
So here we are back with Jeff K. So, Jeff, when the Stars go on the power play, you've got a signature call that the fans just love. But how did it all get started?
Well, this goes back to my early days as public address announcer. Again, in sharing resources with other PA announcers around the league, you tend to notice certain things that other teams do. And, you know, what do they say? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. My buddy Paul McCann in Nashville of the Predators fame, they do a power play call that's very similar to the one we do. In fact, his power play call inspired me. So I thought it would be a great chance to have another opportunity for the fans to get involved in our presentation because we weren't doing a call and response power play. And, you know, so what we do in Dallas is, let's say the Predators take a penalty. I would say with the Nashville penalty, powered by TXU Energy. Obviously, it's sponsored, just as everything is in hockey these days. So it's with the Nashville penalty, powered by TXU Energy. Your Dallas Stars are on the... That's it. And the fans know to scream, power play. And you ask, how did they know how to do that? Well, during a preseason in the early teens, we had one of our rinkside reporters do a feature on game presentation for the Stars, and that was my opportunity to go on TV and explain to the fans what we would like to do. And so we practiced during that preseason.
Oh, really?
And here we are now about a decade into this power play call, and the fans are loud and proud every time.
All that work going into it. Now, did it happen right away, or did the fans take a minute to warm up to it?
You know, I think it really depends on the situation in game, right? So if we're down a couple of goals and the fans aren't really feeling very energetic, you might hear me encourage them in the call. And I still do it to this day. I'll say something like, all right, fans, I started off, you finish loud with the Nashville penalty. Or fans, you know what to do. with the, that kind of, just to remind them, hey, I need you to get loud. But if we're up, or there's been a good fight or something and they're ready to rock, I know I don't have to encourage them.
There you go. There you go. Now, you said you've been with the Stars for 20 years. Did I remember that
Yep.
right? And how many years
Yep.
have you been with the Cowboys?
So the Cowboys is 14 years, half of which is PA announcer. And I got the Cowboys gig, just a story being in the right place at the right time, because the director of presentation for the Cowboys was at a Stars game when I was their in-game host. And he saw me doing that job for the Stars. And, he found me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing that for the Cowboys. And I said, well, let me think about that for a while. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And
yeah. Twist my arm.
Right. I became the in-game host for the Cowboys. And then in 2019, sadly, we lost both public address announcer voices. Roger Emmerich and Brad LaRock passed, and the Cowboys held a clandestine audition. It was me and about 5 other voices. And Charlotte Jones is in charge of all game presentation for the Cowboys, Jerry's daughter, and she's a bigwig with the Cowboys. She liked my delivery the best, so I took over as public address announcer for the Cowboys in 2019. So this is my 7th season as PA announcer, but my 14th overall with the Cowboys.
Now, with your relationship with people like Bill Allerman or Roger Emmerich or Brad LaRock, what did those people mean to you, and what was the transition like into both of those seats?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough because Bill Allerman, starting with the Stars, Bill Allerman is a legend. Bill Allerman is the classic public address announcer. He is the voice of God. He's more like Andrew Imber or Alan Roach. He's the prototypical public address announcer voice. And I'm not, I can't even do that. My imitation of that is poor. I've come from radio. I've come from in-game host. When I was filling in for Brad LaRock, he lived in Denver. So on preseason games, he wouldn't come to the Cowboys games. I would fill in for him as the marketing voice of the Cowboys, because that was more my style.
All right.
Hey, Cowboys fans, we've got a fan now. Look on the screen. It's more of that,
Yep.
I would say, youthful alternative presentation. So I really felt I had no business being a public address announcer per se.
All right.
But, Bill Allerman taught me a lot, and he taught me how to project, and he taught me to pace yourself.
Yeah.
And he taught me patience in embracing names.
Dr. Pepper proudly presents the starting lineup for your Dallas Stars. Starting in goal from Rochester, New Hampshire, number 1, Casey DeSmith. Starting on defense from Vantaa, Finland, number 23, Esa Lindell. Also on defense from Espoo, Finland, number 4, Miro Heiskanen. Your starting forwards at left wing from Arcadia, California, number 21, Jason Robertson. At center from Nokia, Finland, number 24, Roope Hintz. At right wing from Brampton, Ontario, number 91, Tyler Sagan. And the head coach of your Dallas Stars, Glenn Gullinson. And welcome to the ice, our Baylor Scott and White Jr. starter of the game, Jack Houston.
And so when Bill Allerman retired, there was a bit of trepidation. I thought, would the fans embrace me? But luckily, again, being a familiar voice in the arena, it was more of a natural transition. So, I feel like fans are happy with what I'm doing, and Stars are happy. And when it comes to the Cowboys, Roger Emmerich was one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, and another legend in this town, both on the radio and in sports.
Yeah.
He worked in sports talk and in news talk, knew everything about everything when it came to football, but he also really took the time to get to know you as a person. He had me on his podcast once, and he didn't know anything about Jeff Kay's history and that I've been in radio for 40 years and that I was a a techno rave DJ in the early 90s. I mean, you can see the vinyl behind me
Yeah.
over
Oh,
there.
yeah.
But when he interviewed me for his podcast, he was asking questions like, Jeff, you went to Los Angeles for a couple of years. You called it Techno Summer Camp. Tell me more about that. And I thought, wow, Roger Emmerich really did his homework. He took the time. So that really made an impression upon me. And I'll be honest, when I do my Cowboys down in distance portion of my presentation, I try to channel a little bit of Roger Emmerich. There's a little bit. I wouldn't say it's a Southern drawl. You know, it's still Jeff K, but there's a little bit of Dak Prescott's pass complete to number 88, C.D. Lamb. There's just a little bit of Roger in there that I keep with me at all times.
Somewhere out there, he's listening and smiling, I'm sure. Now, going back to the Stars, at one point, the National Hockey League had their All-Star game in Dallas. And you told me a story about a certain request that they had of you for the All-Star game. Tell us about that.
Right. So this goes back to the time when I was the music director for the Stars. You remember I started working as their music director in 2005, and the Stars got the NHL All-Star game in 2007. And I met with the league because I wanted to convince them that I was the right choice for music director for the event. And, you know, we had meetings and they agreed to it, and I was responsible for handling all the music. But they also said, Jeff, we've got this great idea for the opening sequence. Since you're a DJ, what would you think if we lowered you from the rafters of the American Airlines Center on a stage with fire, flames shooting all around you while you're mixing and scratching? Because, you know, you're a DJ. I thought, that's the craziest idea I've ever heard. But look, if you're going to let me be the music director for this nationally televised event, yeah, sure, I'll do whatever you ask.
Okay.
And so we rehearsed it a couple of times and we goofed it a couple of times. But on the night of the All-Star game, and this was on national TV, still in standard definition back in 2007, and it was on Versus. If anybody remembers the channel,
I remember
Versus.
that.
And this was the year that Gary Bettman decided to move the All-Star game to a Tuesday night. And so we were going up against American Idol, I think. So it might have been the lowest rated All-Star game. Anyway, I'm trying to preface all this by saying I had Doc Emmerich, introducing the All-Star game with me in the background being lowered from the rafters with flames shooting all around me. And it cuts to me and I'm mixing and scratching a mix of Queen's We Will Rock You. You know, truth be told, I might have been miming it all because, you know, when you're being lowered from a rafters and there's a chance the needle could jump, so we didn't want to have that problem. So I might have been miming, but you know what, son of a gun, if it didn't look like the coolest thing ever, and I've got it on my YouTube channel, I think you guys have a link to it if people want to go check it out.
Oh, wow. That had to be amazing and nervous as hell all at the same time.
Welcome back to Dallas, Texas. The franchise arrived here in a move from Bloomington, Minnesota in 1993, expanded from 5 rinks to 25, from 250 hockey players in the area to over 5,000. They had a championship in 1999. The festivities for this first All-Star game continue. Let's join the All-Star celebration, Robert Randolph and the family band.
I had to wear a harness. I had to cut a hole through my jersey and be harnessed to the stage for safety precautions. And I had to climb up on the catwalk and climb over the railing and be lowered down onto the stage, hundreds of feet in the air. So it was fun. And, you know, now I can show my grandbaby one day. Look what your grandpa did. Isn't that cool? But at the time, I thought it was the silliest idea. But it looked pretty cool.
Oh, the things that we do that nobody sees that we do for our profession. Unbelievable. All right, folks, we're going to take another media timeout. And when we come back, Jeff started to talk about the PA Brotherhood in the National Hockey League. Well, we'll ask him about the same thing if that exists in the National Football League. We'll be right back.
Announcing the Game is a free resource to public address announcers that take you through how to take your skills to the next level. A simple click on the sport gives you free access to a video that goes over terminology and rules specific to a lot of sports. So take a look, see if we can help you improve your skills.
So here we are, folks, back with Jeff Kay. So, Jeff, earlier we were talking about the stars of the National Hockey League. You talked about the PA Brotherhood, and Andrew Ember, who was our guest on our podcast earlier, mentioned the same thing, and how it's a great resource for you. Is there something like that for you in the National Football League as well?
Well, to be honest, it's a little bit more connected in the National Hockey League,
Okay.
and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're much more of a niche sport. Yes, it is one of the four major sports, but we really feel in the National Hockey League that we need as much support as we can get, and we lean on each other as much as we can. In the National Football League, it's a much more prestigious league. It's a much more supported league when it comes to these positions. And that's not a knock on the NHL. I feel like the NHL has really come a long way. And I feel like I could personally do a better job of starting to connect more with the football guys.
Okay.
I've only been in contact with a handful of them, and there isn't a clandestine website or a announcerhelp.com for football as of yet, because the league does such a great job with their pronunciations.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the NHL, will provide a Word document, but again, we've found that NHL names can be a little bit more tricky, so we lean on each other. In the NFL, you get your game day sheet, and it's got the tough names on the roster card, but I feel like maybe I could do a little bit better job. So this will be my motivation to create a bigger PA brotherhood with the football guys. But no, not as of yet.
All right. Well, glad we could help a little bit. So now, working in two major sports, hockey and football, in a major market, what's it like to shift gears between them? Like the typical PA for ice hockey, goals, assists, on and on. Or you've called it play-by-play for football, though it's not what is on television, play-by-play.
Right.
But making that switch between those two, like, have the Stars ever played home on a Saturday and the Cowboys are home for a 1:00 kickoff the next day?
Well, actually, this season, I've got a double dip. I'm looking here to see if I can remember the date of it. It's in December. The Stars play at 6, the Cowboys play at noon. So I plan on working both games. So that's going to be a long day because my call time with the Cowboys game is usually 6 hours before kickoff. So for a noon kickoff, that's 6 a.m. A noon Cowboys game should be over by 3:30.
Yeah.
There's about an hour's worth of traffic getting out of the parking lot at AT&T Stadium. So I'll be out by 4:30. It takes about 40 minutes to get to the American Airlines Center. What's that, about 4:15, 4:20?
Yeah.
For a 6 o'clock face-off, we got warm-ups at 5:30. I think I can do it. But yeah, so the thing is, the Stars are smart. They rarely schedule a game on a Sunday because in Dallas, nobody wants a sporting event to go up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys still rule this market.
Yeah.
As much as we love hockey, we're not dumb. We know that, a Cowboys player getting a hangnail is going to get a headline over the Stars making the playoffs. So generally, there's not a Cowboys game and a Stars game conflict. However, this year I've got one, and thankfully the time difference is wide enough that I think I should be able to do both. But if not, obviously I have backup. I have a backup for both the Stars and the Cowboys.
Okay. Now, would that backup, say you are late to the Stars game, would the backup start and then you'd pick up when you show up, or once the backup starts, they get the game?
I think if it's going to be a situation where I'm only going to be delayed, we would have our current in-game host. His name is Jersey.
Yeah.
I think he would cover me until I got there.
All right.
But if it was a game that I was going to be out completely, it would probably be either between Jersey and Mike Taylor. Mike Taylor is a longtime PA guy in Dallas. He's done a lot of minor league hockey in this town.
All right.
He's filled in for me before. And with the Cowboys, it would most likely be Sean Heath, who's already at Cowboys games as our in-stadium news desk host. The Cowboys have a presentation where they welcome you to the game with male and female desk host. It's Shonda Music and Sean Heath. Sean is also the public address announcer for the Dallas Mavericks. I think he'd be a great guest on this program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But because he's so adept at being a public address announcer, he could fill in for me. There was one time I was recovering from back surgery a few years ago, and I missed the first Cowboys game of the season, and Sean Heath did a great job filling in for me that game.
Well, good. That has to make you feel good, knowing that there's somebody that can do a good job when you're gone. That has to make you feel
Right.
better. Now, earlier you mentioned some people that you have eventually taken over for, and those people that have helped you, and you've learned from some of the best. Now it's your chance, Jeff, to pay that advice forward. What advice would you give to an aspiring public address announcer? Maybe somebody who's going to announce their son or daughter's youth league game, or maybe it's a high school game or further up to the pros. What would that advice be?
Well, first of all, I would say that nobody makes a career out of being a public address announcer, except maybe Alan Roach. Right. I think most of us are public address announcers because we have demonstrated some pattern of success in another aspect. For me, it was, 40 years in radio, or at the time I took over, it was about 30 years at that time. I had honed my vocal skills and my presentation enough to where, in radio, you have to be brief and brilliant. You want to sound like you're not reading, but really you are reading. You want to be natural. You want to be conversational. And I take a lot of those skills into my public address announcer jobs. But I didn't get into this business to be a public address announcer. So my advice would be, if you want to be a public address announcer, try to hone your craft and skills as much as possible. Get as many reps as you can. And that means doing the high school games, doing the Little League games, watching a game on TV with a tape recorder or even your iPhone recorder, and narrate what you're seeing, and just try to, strengthen that muscle, that voice muscle, that vocal presentation muscle, that ability to control your breathing. A lot of times if you're reading something and it's a run-on sentence, you can't stop in the middle and take a breath. That's going to sound bad. So how do you pace yourself? So my suggestion would be to get into the sports entertainment business. You have to push, but not be pushy. You never have to say yes to everything, but I would say yes to as many things as you can, or just never say no. Take every opportunity.
Good point.
And I have people come up to me in Dallas. They're kids that grow up in Dallas, and they say, Jeff, I want to be a public address announcer for the Stars. And I tell them, that's great, but you have to understand, Dallas is a destination market, much like other major media markets. And coming from radio, I understand this. In order to be on the radio or on TV in cities like Dallas, Chicago, Houston, New York, LA, again, you have to demonstrate that you've had a pattern of success somewhere else when these positions open up. So if the Stars had a position, or if I retired, most likely it would be somebody that was either like a Jersey or a Mike Taylor who's demonstrated their success. They would move up and in. So how do you get into that pipeline?
Yes.
Well, we have the Allen Americans. They're the ECHL team. There are teams in Midland, Odessa. There's an Austin team. There are teams in smaller markets that I'm sure would love to have a public address announcer where you could go hone your craft. And then once you've demonstrated a pattern of success with those teams, that's when you would maybe send your reel or whatever to a team like the Stars, should they have an opening.
Exactly.
As far as the Cowboys, right, I still pinch myself because to me, the Cowboys are the #1 sports franchise on the globe. And they, in my mind, probably could have done an international search for the best public address announcer in the world with the most experience. Maybe an Alan Roach would have taken the job with the Dallas Cowboys. But here's an important lesson. What I've learned in sports is a lot of times it's the relationships that matter the most.
Exactly.
A lot of times it's your pattern of success. I proved to the Cowboys that I could handle the difficulty and the stress of being their in-game host, which honestly is a lot more difficult than sitting in a chair and talking on a mic. I was running all around the stadium, hitting my marks, being live on a screen where the delay was 2 seconds, and that's difficult to talk with.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm here with Cowboys return specialist Ryan Switzer. Ryan, your first career NFL touchdown was a doozy tonight, 83 yards to the house.
Anyway, the point is, the Cowboys decided that they would do an audition with people that they knew, that they could trust,
Yeah.
and that they wouldn't have to pay to move, and they wouldn't have to
Yes.
worry about prima donnas or all that.
Yes.
So I'd already had a great relationship with the Cowboys, and they knew what they had with me. So the lesson there is, once you get an opportunity and you have that door opening, kick that door down, do the best job you
Yeah,
can, and
absolutely.
then hope you're in the right place at the right time
Mhm.
when another position comes available.
Yep, to be that right fit for what that organization is looking for. Exactly.
Exactly.
Now, we have a few more questions here, Jeff, before we let you go. And we ask these of all of our guests. Number one, a wow moment where you almost had to stop yourself and say, did we just see that? So you're not cheering out loud. Any of those
Right.
for you?
Oh, yeah, you bet. Yeah, you got to go back to the season when Jamie Benn won the Art Ross Trophy for the league's top scorer. Jamie Benn was trailing, I want to say it was Sidney Crosby, maybe by like 3 points going into the final game. Well, that final game of the season, Jamie Benn scored a hat trick and he had an assist. So he had 4 points to win the Art Ross Trophy in the final game of the season. So this was when I was still at center ice between the penalty boxes. So after Jamie Benn gets his 4th point and the crowd knows that he's going to win the Art Ross, and all the players skated off the bench and started hugging him, the huddle of players kind of drifted right in front of the penalty box where I was. And there's all sorts of pictures of that moment. And if you look at one of the pictures from that moment where Jamie Benn's being congratulated by all his players, in the background, in the penalty box, are the off-ice officials sitting at their desk, looking very professional, headsets on, head down, writing down the information. I am standing up on the glass going, being the most unprofessional public address announcer you've ever met. But again, I was excited as any fan in the building. I started as a fan. And so that was a moment I probably felt was maybe one of the most unprofessional, but I don't care. I love that moment.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And there, and with as far as pinch me moments, I would also say working the 2020 Winter Classic at the Cotton Bowl is an all-timer for me, at least until the Stars win the Cup. Getting to say Stars win in front of 85,000 people at a sold-out Cotton Bowl in an outdoor game, the first ever outdoor game. We're going to have another one, by the way, February 2027. They just announced the Stadium Series game at AT&T Stadium. So fingers crossed, the league lets me have the privilege of doing the PA work. I can just sit in my normal Cowboys seat for that one.
I don't see why they wouldn't. Now, on the flip side, all of us behind the mic, we've had a moment where we say something and we say, oh, I want that back right now.
Yep.
Any of those? And how do you move on from something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this business, you can be great every game. But if you do make one glaring error, people are going to remember that. You're only as good as your last game, so to speak. And I have a very specific way that I do starting lineups. I have a teleprompter app on my iPad. It's backlit, so when the arena goes dark, it's well lit, and I don't have to have glasses on. My eyesight is terrible. So I will cut and paste starting lineups from a Word document into that teleprompter app, and I'm really good about it. Well, not so great, because one game I got distracted and I cut and paste a previous game starting lineup, and I thought I had corrected all the names until I was in the middle of the starting lineup, and I knew number 18, Sam Steele, was not starting that night. It was supposed to be number 12, Radek Faksa, but I had already started his introduction. We also say where they're from.
Yeah.
So for Sam Steele, it's from Ardrossan, Alberta, number 18, Sam Steele. For Radek Fox, it would be from Opava in the Czech Republic, number 12.
Yeah.
So I was going through my starting lineups and I said from Ardrossan, Alberta, and I knew it was Radek Faksa. And I just, you're in the middle of something, you can't change it. So I introduced Sam Steele on a night that Radek Faksa was in the starting lineup. And of course, the spotlight goes to Radek. He's on the screen, and I'm saying somebody else's name. And I felt so terrible. I told my director immediately after the start, I pushed the button. I said, that's on me. That's on me. It'll never happen again. I'm sorry. I bumped into Radek Faksa at our casino night event a couple of weeks later.
Okay.
And I went up to him and I personally apologized, said, Radek, that was my fault that night that you were in the starting lineup. And he laughed. He said, that's okay. Just want you to know my baby son was in the crowd that night. And he was wanting to hear his dad's name. I was like, oh, thanks, man. But he made me feel all good about it. But that was probably, that's one of the things where your chest burns.
Oh, I know.
You just know it. You just know it. And I really take pride in being as perfect as I can. But yeah, introducing the wrong guy was an all-timer.
Oh, well,
hopefully that'll never happen again.
I'm sure it won't. Now, Jeff, we have one last question. After all these years and all these games that you've called, what still gives you that spark when you step behind the mic?
Well, it goes back to being in radio. So I've gotten to the point where I have my own style, my own delivery. People listen to me on the radio. They've come to know me. And I've got the ability, like I said earlier, to be brief and brilliant, sound like you're not reading when you really are. But being a public address announcer is not like radio. These days in radio, you can voice track, right? So if you mess up, you can stop and go back and correct that. Being in an arena in front of, the Cowboys, 95,000 fans, stars on any given night, 20,000, you are live in the moment, and you have to be live in the moment. And there are some times, let's say with the Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day, well, Jim Nantz is going to throw it to me to introduce the national anthem, right? So not only you're talking to 95,000 people at AT&T Stadium, but you're about to go across the country. You can't stop and re-record. You can't mess up. So I love that feeling.
Raiders and Cowboys coming up, and right now we take you to our public address announcer. Here is Jeff Kovarsky.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, to honor America, please join us in singing the national anthem.
Being a public address announcer still gives me that feeling of my first years in radio, before the days of voice tracking, when everything was live.
Yeah.
And you're about to cut that mic on, and you're in the moment, you're focused, you're prepared. And it really is the closest thing, to those rushes you used to get back in the day when, maybe you were drinking or partying, or you get those pheromones. But you know what I'm talking about. It gives you those feelings you can't. It's like being a rock and roll star on stage. It really is the last hope for me at my age of kind of feeling those feelings. I will say, though, I have a daughter. She's just turned 34. And there's nothing that I can do on the radio that impresses her anymore. She's over it as far as dad being on the radio.
Okay, yeah.
But she's grown up a huge sports fan. She's a Cowboys fan, and she's a Stars fan. And I think she's still pretty impressed that her dad gets to be on national TV on Thanksgiving. And she loves hearing me do, starting lineups and stuff. And I've got a new grandbaby.
Oh, isn't that the greatest?
I'm hoping one day she understands how much fun it is to see her Papa K do the PA stuff. So that's what keeps me motivated.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about with a grandbaby. And your daughter will only understand how you feel when she's in that position. And
exactly right.
It'll be wonderful. Jeff, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Folks, the voice of the Dallas Stars and the Dallas Cowboys, Jeff Kovarsky. Thank you, sir. It's just been fantastic. Thank you.
Tom, thank you. I really appreciate it, and I really enjoy what you guys are doing on here on this channel, and I can't wait to see who you've got next.
All righty. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. And to all of our watchers and viewers and listeners out there, thank you for joining us here on another episode of PAA Game Day. Be sure to subscribe, and after you're finished listening or watching, take the time, leave us a review, because we're always looking for that constructive feedback as we put together our next podcast, when I get to talk with Jessica Paquette, a track announcer for Park Racing, the premier thoroughbred racing venue just outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And don't forget, folks, check out all the resources, all Public Address Announcer at publicaddressannouncer.org. Everything is absolutely free. Written by PA announcers for PA announcers. So until next time, I'm Tom Winiecki, and I can't wait to hear you on the mic.